cursed on failure. Failure doesn't mean you are a failure. It means you haven't succeeded yet. It doesn't mean you've accomplished nothing. It means you've learned something. It doesn't mean you've been a fool. It means you had a lot of faith. It doesn't mean you've been disgraced. It means you were willing to try. It doesn't mean you are inferior. It means you're not perfect. It doesn't mean you've wasted your time. It means you have a reason to start afresh. It doesn't mean God has abandoned you. It means God has a better plan for you. For every loser who tries to do something great always comes out a winner. Let's hear the story of Bolu. Bolu was 23 years old when she began to study for her bar at the Nigerian Law School, Lagos. If anyone had told Bolu she would still be sitting for the same exams 3 years later, she would never have believed. After graduating with a 2-1 from the university. In fact, she had been one of the best in her graduating class. Most of her colleagues had been called to bar, but somehow Bolu still hadn't passed her bar exams. After her second attempt, Bolu's father had made it clear to her it was the last time he would sponsor the exams, and even though she had promised him she would pass, sadly her result had even turned out worse than the previous 2 results. Bolu had been numb for some days, and when her father told her she would have to sponsor herself to write the exams again if she intended to take the exams again, she couldn't really blame him for the decisions. She felt like God had abandoned her. She felt like her life had been put on hold. She never imagined that she would be struggling to pass the bar exams this way. She had great hopes for her legal career. Days after the results, Bolu was still feeling so sad. She decided to call her friend Ndidi, who had been her friend from the university. Ndidi had passed her bar exams at first sitting and had gone ahead to join one of the big 4 accounting firms in their legal department. Bolu had avoided Ndidi after the second results turned out poorly. She couldn't really stand the fact that Ndidi, who wasn't as smart as she was back on campus, could pass the exam once and she had to write it over and over. The exam had indeed humbled her, and she sort of avoided her friends and people close to her. She didn't really want anyone asking her about the exams. Ndidi had remained the only friend who still bothered to check on her once in a while, despite her poor attitude towards Ndidi. And after much trial in keeping the friendship going, Ndidi had sort of slowed down from the constant poor response from Bolu's end. But she knew Ndidi was one person who somehow always had a solution to problems, and so she picked up her phone and dialed Ndidi. Because she really needed to talk to someone, but she realized she had shut the door of friendship on most of the people who she could talk to, and so she tried to call Ndidi anyways. "Hello, Bolu," Ndidi responded. She could feel the surprise from the voice of Ndidi. They had barely spoken in months, apart from the monthly prayer messages Ndidi would send via WhatsApp, which she rarely acknowledged. "I'm so sorry," Ndidi, Bolu busted out with a teary voice. "I failed again. I'm such a failure. And aside that, I am sorry I didn't value our relationship enough to want to share my struggles with you, because I couldn't stand the fact that you passed and I failed. I resented you for it, and I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. Maybe this legal profession is not meant for me." "Hello, Ndidi. Are you there?" Bolu said as the other end was quiet. "Yes, Bolu, I'm here." "Where are you?" I'm at home, Bolu responded. Okay then, I'll stop by your house after work. That evening, Ndidi and Bolu sat together. Bolu, you are not a failure. You just need to find a different way to approach the bar exams. Why not try creating like a new study strategy? You have to change your mindset. You are a child of God, Bolu, and the greater one lives in you. Okay, you say maybe it's your village people. Why didn't they succeed with you on campus? You are a light, Bolu, and darkness can't stand the light except you refuse to acknowledge the light. Then, of course, darkness would remain. You need to let go of all this wrong pattern of thinking you're holding on to. You really need to accept the help that is readily available to you. As Ndidi got up to leave, Bolu walked her. Thank you so much for this evening. I guess it was even my pride that was part of the reason I stayed away. I am so sorry. Ndidi smiled. Sure, it's you that I know now. By the way, I'll support you with 100k as my own contribution for the exam registration. I am sure your dad would come around to sponsor you, and if he doesn't, somehow we will raise the money. Just promise me you won't shut me out anymore again, I beg. That evening, before Bolu slept, she picked up her journal and noted the things she could do differently to succeed. She realized that first, she wasn't a failure, that her mindset had played a big role in her not passing, and she needed to let go of the wrong thinking pattern. She also realized that she had actually stopped living her life and had preoccupied her mind with the thought of her bar exam, so much so she just let life pass through her. She had resented her friends who had passed the exams or tried to offer their advice, and she needed to do things differently. She also realized that she never really analyzed her failure to see loopholes as to why she wasn't passing. And above all, she realized that fear was the greatest reason she had failed, and the fear of failing had constantly affected her entire disposition during the exam. She had even turned it to a spiritual fault. Perhaps it was her village people that didn't want her to succeed. Maybe some household enemies that wanted her to remain in the same position forever. And so she would spend some time casting and binding the enemies of her success. When Bolu resumed law school for the third time, she approached with a different mindset. She made new acquaintances and joined a study group. And when she prayed, she asked God for wisdom and understanding and the help of the Holy Spirit to teach her all things. She kept updating Ndidi and kept an open communication with her other friends, and even met a guy at the law school. She had met a guy in Mayowa and had agreed to go on a date with him. And even though she was preparing for her bar exam, she was still living her life without feeling guilty. Long story short, the results came out and Bolu passed with flying colors. Plus, she found a life partner. Your guess is as good as mine. Mayowa had asked her to marry him and she had said yes. From Bolu's story, we learn that a wrong pattern of thinking can keep you stayed on failing if you do not let it go. Secondly, you need people, and that is why God gives us the gifts of people. No one wins alone, so let go of the fact that you are a one-man squad and you can do it all by yourself. Learn to acknowledge and receive the help that God sends your way through valuable friendships, as what she had with Ndidi. With this, we have come to the end of